Hello, hello, hello. For those of you that I have not yet had the chance to meet, my name is Ashley Haynes-Gaspar, and I am Microsoft's COO for US Business Applications and Industry. And today we are talking about all things experience. I'm super excited to talk about both employee experience and customer experience because they are an existential priority for companies today. And I have to say, on a personal note, I have a deep heart space for this topic, figuring out how to really unlock breathtaking experiences through innovation. Throughout my career, I've done this as a CMO, I've done this as a VP of customer service and success, and now in my role at Microsoft, I am deeply privileged to bring that experience to our customers to really help them transform how they think about experience in their organizations to really drive incremental top-line growth and margin expansion, both of which I think we would all agree are great things. And it's an incredibly timely topic. With the draft kicking off today, it feels like this is in fact the perfect moment to be talking about how data and technology are transforming the game day experience. And I'm thrilled to share how we're collaborating with PwC to really bring these experiences to life. And here to share the stage with me is the incredible Matt Hobbs with PwC. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm very excited to be here. For some context, I'm a partner with PwC with responsibility over our Microsoft practice and alliance. What that means is I work closely with Microsoft to solve our clients' most pressing challenges. A lot of those focused on industry and business outcome, and of course, experience overriding all of that when you look at what customers and employees are expecting today.
That's outstanding, man. I have to tell you, we're so grateful for the partnership because I think together we're seeing firsthand how cloud, AI, and virtual reality are really changing the game for businesses both on and off the field. And to say the past 2 years have really been a thing, I think for CMOs and CXOs and service and supply chain leaders would really be an understatement. You know, there's just been such a tremendous amount of pressure, both on the top line and on profits. And it's been just deeply challenging for folks. And I think with all of that said, it's also been a catalyst for innovation that's happened across sectors. You know, we saw it in retail with things like curbside pickup and contactless shopping. And we saw it in places like healthcare with telehealth. And I think this case for the intersection of experience and technology has never been stronger. So before we get into the great content that we have for today, I want to introduce a very special guest, Israel Adonijay. Izzy spent 11 seasons playing professional football as a defensive end for the Chicago Bears during their 2006 World Championship. He also played for the Detroit Lions and the New York Giants. Izzy has received numerous awards both on and off the field, and he is the founder of Impact Fund that help youth in Chicago, Winnipeg, and Africa, and is also an entrepreneur of many, many ventures, including Athletic Comics, Impact House, and Crypto Keystack. Izzy, welcome. To get started, can we have a little bit of rapid fire fun?
Of course.
Okay, first question for you, my friend. In the stands or on the field?
On the field, for sure.
Yeah, okay. Favorite
Easy.
Game day snack, nachos or wings?
Oh, nachos or wings? Wings.
How hot do you go? Are you like a mild guy or are you like flaming hot?
I like hot, not flaming hot. I still want to be able to taste the rest of the day. So just not too hot, but just a little bit of spice is good.
I love it. I love it. Walk-on song. You get to walk into any room and a song plays. What song plays for you?
Ooh, walk-on song. I walk out. We Will Rock You.
That's a good one. It's a classic.
That's a classic.
Yeah. Okay. So sticking with the music theme, you're doing a dance in the end zone. What dance are you doing?
What dance am I doing? I think, that's a good question. I'm not much of a dancer. I did score a touchdown once, and I was so exhausted I didn't do anything. I just stood trying to catch my breath. I was on empty. If you can get in the end zone, that's impressive. I'm fully impressed.
Yeah, that's statement enough. There's nothing needed. Okay, two last ones. Can you complete this sentence for me? Fan experience is
The future.
I love it. I love it. I agree. And then the last one, football is?
Football is an opportunity.
That's fantastic. And it's a perfect bridge to where I really wanted to start this conversation. Um, I think many folks that are tuning in with us today understand your accomplishments. I think they know what you've done is incredibly impressive, but I think what they may not know is that your path to football is unique. I think compared to how many professional football players start, which is when they're probably like 4 or 5 years old and all helmet. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your background and upbringing and ultimately what led you to a career in football.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because football was never something that I dreamt of doing or that I was even passionate about. Growing up, my parents are missionaries. We grew up in a family of service, and that was, the priority in our lives. My father ran a program called Street Love where we collected food and gave it to homeless people and folks that needed food supplement. And my father was very academic, and my passion was basketball. I wanted to play basketball for the Chicago Bulls. In my house, we were only allowed to watch 1 hour of television a day. You had to play an instrument and read for an hour during the day. And along the way, I fell in love with basketball, and that's really what I wanted to do. And along the way, I started running an after-school program at the YMCA. My boss at that program, Kevin Grindy, came to me and said, "Hey, you're this phenomenal athlete. You should try football." I said, "Football? I'm not interested." He pressed the point. He convinced my mother to take me to a practice 2.5 hours away from where we lived. I made the team for that practice, playing for Team Manitoba, the provincial team, similar to the state. At that practice was the head coach of the University of Manitoba, Brian Dovey. And Brian Dovey, at the end of the practice, said, "Hey, young man, we'd like you to come play for our university." I ended up playing at the University of Manitoba for 4 years. And one day he called me. There was a scout from the Cleveland Browns at our practice and at our facility. And I met him. His name was Yogi Jones. He stayed, he watched me practice. Long and short, I ended up signing a free agent deal with the Cleveland Browns. Before the first regular season game, I fractured my ankle and I got cut and sent back to Canada. A few weeks later, the Chicago Bears called and they signed me to a 1-week contract. And that was 2003. After that 1 week, I played to the end of the year. At the end of that year, they sent me to Europe to play in the NFL Europe. That was a league it's not here anymore, which was a special point in my life. Fortunately, we won a world championship with the Berlin Thunder. And I came back to Chicago, and that 1 week turned into an incredible 11-year career, which I'm so thankful for. And what's so incredible is the game has changed so much since 2003. And almost 20 years has passed since I first put on a helmet for the Chicago Bears all those years ago. And it's been pretty special to watch how the game has changed and how the experiences for players, for fans, for teams has really transformed.
So thank you for sharing a little bit of your background, and a little bit of yourself and your family. I feel like I know you better, so I'm grateful for that. And I want to pull on the thread that you just kind of I think started around how the game has changed. From where I sit from a technology perspective, I think we see AI informing everything from maybe who's on the team. What plays get called. We see it applied to like player health, like biometrics. I think we see things like surface devices on the sidelines informing, choices and decisions. I'm curious from your perspective, how have you seen the game change?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed in multiple ways. I think, these teams across all of sports, they take a lot of time and focus and put a lot of resources into the collection of data. I think more than ever, they've done a fantastic job in the application of that data. And I think that's for all, regardless of what industry you're in, being able to collect the data and apply it in meaningful ways to have meaningful outcomes, sorry. Income is as well, but meaningful outcomes is so important. And you'll see, player engagement has changed as far as the health, how they approach the health of the players. When I started, we would practice 7 days in a row, 2 practices a day, fully padded out, helmet, shoulder pads, like a game. And they don't do that today. Now you can only practice 2 days full pads, and then you have to have a rest. Why? Because the data showed it wears the guys down. Not only that, there's a room now in the facility where you can walk in, put on a headset, and literally go through every play virtually without putting your body in any type of physical jeopardy, right? I mean, that's transformative. You can get as many snaps before the game as you need to, go through every iteration of every play, same play, different situation. You can live it, walk it through before that game happens. And that's just phenomenal. The game has changed, right? You look at them moving up the kickoff line, right? Again, player safety, like shortening that distance, less violence in that collision of the players. It's just transformative. The last thing I'll say is the playbook, right? When I started, my playbook was like this thick. It was massive. Now the playbook is a simple little tablet surface and all my plays are in there. Not only that, if I don't look through my playbook and if I haven't gone through every page, my coach knows, right? Just the data and the feedback that's there, it's incredible, and it's ultimately making the game better.
That's outstanding. Matt, I'm curious, like, what would you add or what perspective would you share?
I mean, I've listened to the parallels around how we think about employee performance and how we think about kind of engaging with customers in different ways, all around kind of experience and data. From a visualization perspective, it ends up being you start aggregating together all of these data pieces, but how do you use that to form meaningful insight? And that can become overwhelming. One of the pieces, and I think you're probably seeing the video now, is an example around one way that you can manifest that into what is the meaningful insight you can get from all the examples that Israel gave, which is, you're seeing someone interact with a Azure gesture-based camera. So it's them interacting, and you can see as you kind of move around, what are the different levels of insights based on the instrumentation that you're getting, whether it's on player performance specifically, whether it's a precursor to an injury, which things that you obviously want to avoid. So you can look at this from a sports analogy around kind of where and how is it used in some of these examples, but it's just the same when you think about it from an employee performance. How are they feeling? Are they in a good spot mentally? Is there a break that you need to provide? Is there a different way that you mean to apply training and knowledge absorption when you think about, leveraging VR for that?
Yeah, I love that. And I'll tell you, as as a reformed consultant, having spent, an early part of my or early part of my career in audit, I think that employee health is incredibly important. And I think it's become more so, over the past several years. Izzy talked about the transformation that he has seen in football. I'm curious, what changes have you seen in consulting since you started with PwC?
Yeah, so it's been 19 years with PwC in consulting, and I think the expectations have changed substantially. If you think of kind of where you're at from a talent perspective, people have choice and they want to work at places that give you a great learning experience and support you along the way. Life happens while you're working, right? You need to be able to support the person. 19 years ago, also, if I think about it, technology was used as an enabler to drive efficiency and very structured kind of value outcomes. You think of like the large multi-year projects where you do custom technology to try and define efficient ways of delivery or different business models. Now, and that also, I think, played out in the early waves of cloud, which was more around, a CIO specific agenda around driving towards a different cost play. But I think cloud is a value play and technology is a value play. And we call it kind of the technology driven outcome world, where you're looking at what are the new business models that I can create based on the experiences that are there and where technology continues to evolve. So this is now kind of a always on view of the constant innovation that comes from companies like Microsoft around the possibilities that are there and how you apply it in a specific business context. So the simplest way is technology 19 years ago was an enabler. It was really hard to get data. It was more in a BI reporting scenario where it was super delayed. And now you're in a state where you're trying to create that digital fabric for your company or for any company in industry that you can continuously evolve and meet different scenarios that maybe you didn't predict were possible when you started the journey of that big behemoth of a project that used to happen in the past.
So I really appreciate that perspective. And I would say, on a personal note, over the past several months, I've had the opportunity to attend some professional hockey games. And I have to tell you, the teams and the franchises that invested in that technology experience felt very, very different than the teams that didn't. And I found myself not willing to wait in a line anymore for 20 minutes to go to the bathroom or to get a beer, missing key plays, or to have to spend time looking for a parking place. I think that this technology is really redefining and almost setting like a new bar for what that experience is. And I recognize that part of that is not just like the technology and the data, but part of that is how data and technology enable employees to do their job well, is that last mile execution with and for customers. In order to be able to deliver these differentiated and memorable experiences for customers, we're starting to see that bridge from a technology perspective, which makes that last mile execution in front of customers for employees easier. And Matt, I'm curious, like, how are you thinking about that? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think from a like technology for technology's sake doesn't deliver the experience expected. We have had to build up one of the largest digital agencies, digital experience type of focus capabilities within PwC to specifically meet that need. So that digital experience and how do you lead with an elegant experience from an employer, a consumer, you want adoption, you want usage, and you need to have a great elegant experience in order to do that. I think if you apply it in some of the scenarios that you're talking about here, even from a facility operator of a stadium or a smart venue, and you can see one of the examples that that should be showing a video right now is when you visualize that from an augmented reality perspective, you can see how you can instrument every portion of not just the physical facility, but the person's interaction with that facility to try and drive a better experience. Now, maybe you're in a situation where there is going to be a long wait line for whatever reason, but would three sections over, there is absolutely no wait. So some of that is kind of giving the information at the hands of the person to be able to make the decision. The other is, can you go further? Can you say, well, actually, what's driving that friction for the creation of the line or the ingress and egress to the facility, or not being able to find a parking spot and driving around? Those are all things that you can physically instrument and see. And what we're showing here to be able to drive that data streaming in real time back to inform a decision and drive a better experience.
Yeah, Izzy, I'm curious, what would you add?
Yeah, so the application of data is more prevalent than it ever has been, right? When you look at, you entering a facility, today the data, everything you need to know about that facility is literally in the palm of your hands from start to finish. What foods you want to eat, you can find them. The restrooms where you want to go, everything that you will need, all the data points in that incredible compound, you can find. And then also on the other side of that, the facilities also can collect all of those data points and take that information and tweak it to create a better experience for the fans in those seats, right? When you look at these smart venues, as Matt mentioned, or these technology-enabled stadiums, they're the future. And when you look at them in comparison to a stadium where it's an elite facility compared to some of the stadiums that I played in when I started in 2003, where there was no technology in the stadiums. There was no technology for fans in the seats. It's a massive gap, and that ultimately is the new standard. If your stadium isn't set up in a way that the technology allows for me to know every touch point I need to know, it's just not going to be an experience that I love. It'll be an experience that as I sit in that seat, I'm going to make a decision like, will I ever come back to this place, right? The having that technology ultimately is the new standard and the expectation.
Yeah, and I think, Izzy, in a prior conversation that you and I were having, you said something that really resonated with me, which kind of like anchors on this notion of recency bias, right? Which is your last best experience becomes the minimum bar for any future experience that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing else would be acceptable, right? If you want to go to a game now, you want to go to that game where it's just a premium experience because you've had that. Why would you go anywhere else?
Yeah. And I think, there's this conversation we've been having around how data and technology are really fueling these differentiated experiences across industries, professional sports, consulting, many more. Izzy, I know you had the opportunity to see the HoloLens experience. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that, and then perhaps provide a bridge to how you're seeing technology used in some of the ventures that you're involved in.
Of course. Well, I think one, technologies like the HoloLens are super exciting to me. I've been tracking, you know, AR, VR since 2013 and been just really keyed into that space. And it's pretty incredible how you talk about spatial computing, digital light fields, how they've transformed just any experience, right? The ability to put on a headset and transform the environment that you're in and literally take yourself in another world, in another room, to be able to touch and see things around you like they're actually around you as you look around. It's phenomenal, and as advanced as far as it has come since 2013, it's going to be like incredible to see what the future of that looks like, especially as they integrate it more into our everyday lives. And then the form factors get smaller and more, just like these glasses we wear. That's what I believe our futures will look like. And in my ventures and the projects that we're working on, I really try to be intentional about, what Matt just mentioned about having a smart venue, regardless of what you're doing. Treat it like a smart venue. We're opening a health and wellness studio here in the city. Again, can we utilize our technology to make that venue, that experience, just unparalleled, premium, as a member walks into the studio, what they feel, how they engage with the member coordinators, how they go to a class, use the sauna, the cold tubs, everything, again, should be in the palm of their hands and allow them to interface seamlessly. We've also just opened 40,000 square feet here in downtown in the Loop, Chicago. It's called Impact House. It's a work club, and that same approach, each member here, we have about 200 members. Whatever you need in this 40,000 square feet, I want to put it in the palm of your hands, right? You want to book a conference room, you can do that seamlessly. Oh, something's come up, I want to cancel it. I need to put in a ticket. There's an issue in my office. We want you to feel like you have a personal concierge for anything that you need here in this venue, right? A little bit more challenging is we're also in manufacturing. We have a manufacturing facility where we make pre-filled communion cups, and that's the technology, or the innovation behind the technology there is in really focused in supply chain, right? How can we be more efficient in how we get the raw plastics, the grape juice that we order, the materials like metal. Right now we're building a new machine. Sourcing our supplies has actually been more challenging than ever. And frankly, the manufacturing space is so ripe to be changed as far as how technology is utilized and how we get the feedback from what I need today, what's going to be available tomorrow, and how we source certain things. So those are some of the things that we're focused on in our experience, both as supplying products to clients and also creating experiences for folks in our retail spaces.
What I really appreciate, I think, about what you just said and what I heard Matt talk about is that regardless of industry or segment, it really feels like experience is the hero motion. It's the connective tissue across industries, across brands, and the customers that they serve. And we've heard some examples of retail. We've heard some examples of consulting and fans and sports. And then Izzy, what we're doing for church communities, what you're doing for church communities. It really feels like experience is that unifying wrapper. And I'll say, at Microsoft, our mission really is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And when I think about the purpose behind why we are investing in these technologies, it's to elevate that potential. It's to elevate that potential for companies, to elevate that potential for employees and their customers to do just that, right? To do more. And at our Ignite event that we held in November, we announced our customer experience platform that really helps organizations take control of their customer experience end to end. And we do that through full ownership, allowing customers to have full ownership of their own customer data. And going forward, I think this is going to be so important because every business is going to need to have autonomy over their data estate and how it's being used to really enhance those customer relationships. And it enables organizations to really work as one cohesive unit. Historically, we had marketing with their view of the customer, and sales maybe had their view of the customer, and then service might have had theirs, and then supply chain and fulfillment, and never the twain shall meet, right? And I think as we think about these experiences moving forward, that common view of the customer experience end to end, whether it's marketing making commitments up front, it's sales, selling that promise, it's service helping to make sure that when things go bump in the night, that they have the ability to fix them, to supply chain, fulfilling the dream. You've got to have an integrated view of what that looks like. And, this platform really helps to remove those silos, the data silos, the technology silos, and the people silos, to really help companies exceed customer expectations. We have made investments in solutions like Teams and Microsoft Viva to really drive that collaboration and focus on employee experience, because happy employees are better positioned to create happy customers. So I would love both of your perspectives really on how customer demands for consumer grade experiences are increasing, and how perhaps this has changed and what it's meant to really create raving fans and extending that experience either before, during, or after the game.
Sure. I think I'll go first here. Is from from what we see from a research perspective, that exceptional experiences are no longer about delight. They're about a baseline expectation. You see that from people coming into the workforce and making decisions based on how efficiently you allow them to do the other things that they need to do in order to stay focused on their core purpose of what they want to deliver for a company. And so if you create friction in the ability to book a conference room, or the types of environment you make available for them to be able to collaborate and team with others, you don't get them. You don't attract them from a talent perspective. You look at it from a customer perspective, is once you set that watermark, to what Israel was saying around some of his experiences, once you set that watermark, that becomes the expectation because you've seen it's now possible. And so when it comes from how do you actually think about this as a company, you need to start with the experience. You need to look out as far as you can in an unbounded capacity, and then look at that and say, okay, if that's the future that is possible, what is the business model that supports that? What are new business models that are created because of it? And then how does the innovation from a technology perspective support the delivery of those experiences? What oftentimes we find is that visionary experience, when you go through the business model and you land at the technology, isn't that visionary. It's something that's capable and available now. So how do you take and extend it further? How do you take and look at what's there from a technology-driven transformation and say that's actually going to push the boundary of what's possible from an experience point of view? You can see one of the concepts from a video perspective that's out there now, and this is an interaction with a Surface Hub, moving through kind of, if I'm watching a game as an example, what are the different components of ways that I can interact that are all ingredients of a different type of business model? Can I actually watch and engage directly in, those are some pretty awesome shoes. Maybe I actually want to purchase those types of shoes. Maybe there's a different type of commerce pattern, engagement pattern. Maybe like many folks, they're watching and engaging with a second screen. What does that mean from a instrumentation of data, personalization of the experience that you provide? This is more of a concept to be able to show how those things come together between experience expectation, a business model to be able to support it, and the technology that's here and there, here today to be able to deliver on it.
Fantastic. Izzy, what would you add?
I would just say, ultimately, I think the fan experience is today, it's unparalleled, right? Fans to players to teams to clubs. At early in my career and even before me, they were all somewhat siloed, right? Where it's just like, as a fan, like, this is all you got as a fan, and that was it. And everything else was imaginary, right? Well, like, what does the locker room look like? What's behind, what's Michael Jordan doing now? All these things. Now with technology, all of those silos are gone, right? And the world between the fan, the player, and the team, because of technology, it's this one really cyclical, fluid environment that provides an opportunity to players to engage like they never have, and for teams to engage like they never have with their fans. And it's a really special opportunity, as you can see it unfolding. Myself, again, being retired for a number of years, just last week I had on my social media 4 high school football athletes just reached out to us, and they wanted to do an interview. They're all aspiring football players. They wanted to do an interview and spend some time with me, and we did that. We all jumped on a virtual meeting, and we talked. They asked a lot of questions about how do you have a long career, how do you fight through injury and challenge when you're not playing. All these things, because of technology, are now possible. That in an old world, those nuances, those relationships, weren't necessarily able to be facilitated in that same way. And that's what's so exciting, I think, as you look at this entire ecosystem between your clients, your employees, and the companies. It's really a great opportunity to connect them in a way that we've never connected before.
I love that. And the word that comes to mind as I hear you talk is proximity. Like, it drives greater proximity for teams, for fans, for players, and that's a super exciting space. Matt, I'm curious, like, listening to you talk and Izzy talk, how are you thinking about how those experiences translate to any industry?
Yeah, maybe I'll give a couple examples. One that we're working on closely with Microsoft is around a smart district in itself. So a new smart community that includes residents, businesses, and of course, visitors that are going to come to visit the facility. And so that mixed use development, you're looking at leveraging Azure core services from a cloud compute perspective. You're looking at Dynamics 365 from a technology perspective, and mixing those together around what does that mean from data instrumentation to be able to provide different differentiated customer experiences that are also supported by a really robust business model. You also get the things that we've talked about earlier and showed some videos around the ability to instrument that physical location in a way that gives you a baseline of what we call a digital twin in the industry. So a 3-dimensional visualization of being able to take all the different bits of data and look at it from a facility operations perspective or a safety perspective in real time, as well as things like predictive maintenance that will drive down cost and obviously help for things like carbon emissions. Another one from a different type of experience. We did some work with the Open Source Imaging Consortium and Microsoft, and what they focused on was there's a number of patients that are affected by deadly rare lung disease. And in most cases, that's misdiagnosed. And misdiagnosing something like that in early stages tends to be terminal. And so that's a different type of experience, which is you want to survive and thrive. And so what we did is created a medical imaging platform built on Azure. Significantly increases access to imaging and data sets so that you can be able to use AI to try and identify patterns that typically would be misdiagnosed, but because you now collect over 15,000 scans as the target by the end of the year, you can be able to look at imagery patterns and say, this is what it actually looks like, and be able to help physicians and medical professionals and try to identify that in a way that's going to actually save lives. So different type of experience, but still an experience that we certainly all want to appreciate.
So incredibly powerful. Izzy, Matt, I want to thank you for joining me today. For those of you that joined us, I want to thank you for joining us for this conversation. And I just want to take the opportunity to invite you to go explore our web experience, to learn more about this intersection of data and technology and how it's really unlocking experience across industry. Thank you so much.